Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, we're going to start out with the trivia question. So, what do Jaws, Star Wars, Superman, Indiana Jones, E.T., Jurassic Park, and Harry Potter all have in common? Well, let's find out. This is your host, Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey guys, it's Prague.
It is DeLorean Wolfgang.
And I should probably come up with an intro because I'm back so often. This is Michelle.
It's good to have a fourth member.
Even if there are only 3 screens. I know that really bothers Trevor when it comes to symmetry.
Yes.
Wow. You could just go down to the living room with your laptop and you could do it too.
Yes,
But
but
it's
as
not.
all of the technical difficulties we've gone through this evening have proved, I don't think our internet could handle us streaming 2 videos at the same time.
It's only
That's
been
true.
an hour
It's-
of it. You're fine. You're fine. It was only an hour.
We made sure to get in here early to do this. So
That's true. We did try to start early just so we could have enough time to mess up.
that's right. I wanted to
Oh,
get in
I know.
early so I could finish watching Reacher.
Yeah.
Well,
And, the real
Anywho.
thing is, though, the big problem was audio issues. And it's tough to sync up audio, It really is a difficult thing. And that's why the answer to our trivia question is, hopefully you've been keeping track at home. Do you have an answer? They all have scores conducted by John Williams. Every single one of those films that are some of the most iconic scores of all time. And the reason why John Williams, well, it was just his birthday on February 8th. And there's another reason. It's because the Academy has decided in their vast wisdom that they don't need to air anything related to musical scores in their televised version of the Oscars.
strange, huh?
What?
Yeah.
I would say they don't even need to televise the Oscars because
Oh, that's true.
who cares?
That's where they're heading. Yeah, they're going full steam ahead.
But the song part is the best
No,
part.
they're going to have the song part. They're not
Oh.
doing the score.
Yeah, the original soundtrack, sound editing, sound mixing,
Yeah,
anything
they're just doing
pretty much
best
related to
original
sound.
song. Yeah.
It's very strange.
So Dos
Very
Orgis
strange.
Doesn't make
is going to
any
be
sense.
performed.
Okay, well, at least there's that.
Because as we're going to talk about today, we believe that sound and music is very important to the film experience. I think it ties a lot to our emotional attachments to these films. So I think that's what we're going to be discussing today.
That's a good
So-
call. Wow.
We'll show
you-
them.
We'll show you Oscars.
Because yes, I knew the answer to the trivia question. I was just being silly before. Of course, famous John Williams.
It's crazy, though. I mean, some of the, like, if you listed off the most iconic scores of all time, they're pretty much conducted by John Williams.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't think he has a bad one in the lot. So,
Well, and what's going through his mind? How does he come up with this stuff? Because they're all very unique as well.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. It's actually pretty impressive. So what I have researched on this is that only a few composers in Hollywood really truly write their own music. There are a lot of composers that are probably working a lot, so much so that they have ghostwriters helping them write the music for various shows. And he is one of maybe just a small handful, like 4 or 5, that actually write every single piece of music for everything they do, which is really impressive, especially since every one of them is like iconic, not just, being popular, but you can instantly know what movie each score is from and know that it's made by John Williams. That's impressive. Because there's
And just
some composers out there where, like, yeah, I'll hear them like, oh, that's definitely, so-and-so, but I don't know which one of the films it's from, though. You don't do that with John Williams, in my opinion. I think you can tell from every piece that he writes, what that's from. It's tied to, certain scenes and moments in film history. I think that kind of bonds with us.
Yeah, that's the big
Absolutely.
takeaway of just how he can capture, like, the Harry Potter soundtrack. I give those movies plenty of grief, but the actual soundtrack, it sounds magical. It sounds like you're entering a magical world just from the various notes and tunes that he uses. And the same idea with Star Wars. It sounds like an epic adventure you're going on.
Yeah, actually this weekend I was just at Universal Studios Hollywood, and no joke, walking straight into Harry Potter land, they've got his music just blaring throughout the whole park, which is really cool because it kind of puts you in that setting. Yeah, it's in Southern California and it's snow on top of the buildings, but you hear the music and you almost get put into that scene and you feel like you're really there, and it's the music that really helps capture that emotion.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I just think it's really upsetting that they're not going to air the awards this year for that category, because I feel like when you watch a movie, there are scenes that look nice, but I really do feel like the music in a film stays with somebody in a more emotional level, more so than the visuals do. I think the visuals are there to kind of help, help you remember maybe a scene, but I don't think it's going to really help you feel what the scene feels like. A composer comes in there and they're really translating the emotions that go through a protagonist's head, for example. I know that one of my favorite directors, Mike Flanagan, he actually wrote about the whole idea of a jump scare in a film. He says that he doesn't use jump scares too often, but when he does, they're considered some of the best in the business. And it's because I think he understands how the jump scare works. It's less the visual and it's more the audio. So sometimes what he'll do is he'll show the jump scare physically, like actually show it, and then the beat will happen, and that's what scares you. It's the sound. It's that stays with you, and then you remember the jump scare. So audio is very important.
Sure.
I mean, I would argue with horror movies, it's all about the soundtrack. That's what makes it scary. Like they're like, exactly. Oh, if you mute a horror movie, it becomes a lot less scary because there's not that building. It's the building music for me, like the thing you like something's gonna happen. It builds the tension inside of you. If you don't have that, there's no tension. So you can't do that kind of storytelling in a movie without music. It does what narrative does in a book. It builds the tension.
Good point. It does what narrative does, and internal monologue as well, I think, which you don't get as much in film and television.
And I mean, if you go onto YouTube, you can find some of these videos where people have re-edited scenes from horror movies or really any movies, and they throw a different soundtrack in it, and it completely changes the mood just by changing the song. Like they didn't even have to re-edit the video. You're just changing the song, and all of a sudden now you're taking this horror clip, and no, it's a goofy, silly thing.
You just add the Benny Hill soundtrack to Michael Myers chasing somebody.
Right? So all of a sudden,
Halloween is
okay,
really
this is funny.
Yeah, Halloween's just a romantic comedy. He's like a loner that was really, just wanted to date.
Or even if you're playing the trailer to a romantic comedy and you put a horror movie soundtrack in it, all of a sudden it feels very awkward.
There's something sinister going on.
Sinister, yeah. Exactly. And it's all about what we're hearing. It's wild.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, I know that you mentioned John Williams. I just wanted to mention, and this one's kind of for you, Prague, Alan Silvestri. For me, Alan Silvestri holds a pretty heavy candle right next to John Williams. And the only reason why I call you out, Prague, is because he didn't just do Back to the Future. He did Back in Me as well. And and as our listeners know, Mac and Me means a lot to this podcast. And same with Back to the Future. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit? I mean, the guy did so much with Steven Spielberg. So that one's for you, Trevor.
Well, shout out to Steven Spielberg. I mean,
seriously,
the dude, when you list off he's like, I'm working with John Williams, and now you find out he's working with Alan Silvestri. It's like, I need good music to go with my movie to create the mood that I'm going for. I can't just be like, this shot is beautiful, or this line of dialogue is outstanding. It's more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he understands that. He understands the whole picture, for sure.
And I think you and me talked about that the other day about visuals of a movie versus quotes versus music, and how they kind of call to you in different ways, and how like visuals are going to be the most obvious. Like if you see Darth Vader, you're going to be like, oh, Star Wars. Like you're going to know. Sure. But if you hear like a quote, like the ever misquoted Luke, I am your father, you're like, oh, it might take you a little longer. Or if you're not as familiar with Star Wars, obviously all of us are like Star Wars. But if you hear the Imperial March, it just is such a visceral reaction. Like
Sure.
it really draws you back to like when you watch those movies. Like to me, I hear it and I want to like strut around in like boots.
Yeah, right.
In boots, I love that.
But yeah,
it just
it
makes me feel so empowered in like a sinister way.
Nice. Exactly.
So do you guys, I mean, I know that we just talked about Alan Silvestri and John Williams. Is there any other composers that really stand out to you guys that really, you look forward to if you saw their name in the movies?
See, I'm bad at this because I could tell you like pieces of music from movies that I've loved. I could not tell you who wrote them. I'm horrible at that. I'm like, I could try to look it up right now really discreetly.
Yeah. Trust me, I got another screen right here and I'm going, okay, okie dokie, that's a favorite movie.
Well, I think something to think about is that not all composers are going to be like a John Williams type that has like a main theme or a theme for every single person necessarily. A lot of composers will kind of be like almost something you hear in the background they're not really necessarily paying attention to, but helps drive what you're supposed to feel in that moment. I think John Williams is well known because he writes music that is so specific. And you get a lot of other composers that are really just trying to like heighten a scene for dramatic effect. And those are the ones that maybe not be as famous as the others. For example, someone who been around for a very long time that didn't really get any notoriety until much later was Howard Shore. He wrote the music for The Lord of the Rings, and I think
that's literally what I was looking at.
In all of like film history, like I hear that music and I'm like, I am in the Shire again. I'll hear that subtle music and it's very subtle, but I hear it and I'm like, I feel like I'm sitting under a tree, overlooking the Shire, and it's so peaceful and tranquil. I absolutely love it. I mean, it's so dreamy. And to me, it's iconic, but I think maybe just to most people, it's maybe not. Like maybe they're like, I think I might have heard that music before, but I don't know where it was from. It's like, but for me, yeah, it meant a lot to me, and it's just a lot more subtle, I think. But I think it really helped that, film trilogy.
I tell you what, his filmography is phenomenal as well.
It is. I'm just saying. I don't think he wasn't really. It wasn't really a household name. It wasn't like a John Williams until he did those movies, and then everyone was like buying the soundtracks and knew his name, and he won the Oscar and everything. And thankfully, his Oscar was televised, so that was nice.
It's funny too, though, just with subtle soundtracks, because we were watching the making of music of Encanto, and all the songs are, Lin-Manuel Miranda did an amazing job of writing, and the composer was like, I need to get those notes when they're not singing, because it's a musical, and so there's going to be a lot of actual vocal singing through it, but there's going to be parts where I have to go through the story and use kind of the similar notes and ideas and motifs, but just be able to go through the story without actual lyrical singing to it. That's a challenge all its own right, because you're using other people's music and you're trying to make it your own.
And you also have to build that bridge that connects one song to the other seamlessly.
Yeah, you can't have like dead air or whatever, or have like a weird tempo change that kind of screws up everything,
It's funny because we were talking about Disney specifically because we were talking about Encanto. And you can't, like, when you think of Disney movies, they have very iconic songs, but not really iconic scores, except for Lion King.
Yeah, Lion King is kind of the whole way through. Like if you think of a scene, like you hear even like a snippet of it, you're like, that's Lion King. It doesn't even have to be a song. So yeah, that's a valid point compared to all the other Disney films.
I mean, the part where he's running back, he sees Mufasa in the clouds, and he comes running back, and they have that grand crescendo. I mean,
see, for me, it's when he walks up Pride Rock at the end, and it's like the na 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 na. I just got chills all over my body.
Wow. Oh wow!
Music, man.
Right? It just draws you back, and you see it, and you feel it. Oh, it's great.
Exactly.
That's the difference with music. Just to your point in Star Wars, because I think every movie, it has those three components of, here's the visual thing. That's the base level connection. Anybody can, that's what makes it a movie versus a book. It's actually, and then there's all the different lines of dialogue. People can repeat dialogue, and there's iconic stuff. You laugh about it, or you talk about certain lines. But music, it's not necessarily a discussion point. It's just something that you can feel. Like, you're not going to feel a line of dialogue. you can connect with it, but it's not going to give you goosebumps. It's not going to have you evoke various different emotions. And same with the scene. That looks awesome. That was beautifully shot. Look at the angles of all the different things on set, all that different stuff. But it's the music where you don't have to watch the film. You don't have to look at an image. You can hear a couple notes and you can remember every part of the experience of when you watched it. Not only just what's happening in the narrative. You can be like, oh, I went to the theaters to see that. I was with so-and-so. And it's just all comes just from the song that the scene and a line of dialogue is not going to connect with.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree.
Absolutely. And actually, not really a funny story. I was almost going to say funny story, but when I was like 14 years old, my parents took me and my sister to England and France, and I was in my skateboarder stage where I was like, oh, well, I'm going to listen to CDs the whole time. So I brought 2 CDs with me. I had Alien Ant Farm and Sum 41.
Yeah.
And when I hear any songs off of either one of those CDs, it takes me back to being 14 again, sitting on the train going in between England and France. And I'm like, it's so weird how a song can bring up a memory instantly, just like a taste or smell or anything like that. Yeah, and it can be super vivid, and it's so crazy. And that's what makes so many movies so memorable with these scores. And another thing that I really liked about this conversation of music is it doesn't have to be like a composer or anything. Like, for instance, I think James Gunn is really, really good at finding proper songs to, like, popular songs to convey his movies. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy, you're bringing back these old 70s songs that people really hadn't been thinking about since the 70s or 80s, and he popularized them again, which really made that movie almost extra fun, you know, because you're almost reliving that experience back there. So now you're connecting to the people who grew up in the 70s and 80s, and you're connecting to the people of today by making it into a Marvel movie. Music is just so broad that you can bring in so many different generations.
Yeah, and I think that's a no, sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead, Frog. It's okay.
Right. I was just going to say that's a very American director type of thing to do. I mean, aside from Edgar Wright, who is also well known for doing that in his films, it's become a very American thing to do, to take a pop song of any kind from any era and kind of putting it into a big scene of some kind, whether it's a big emotional scene, action scene. It could even be used like for uses of irony. Even, you know, you'll have like the happy song during a murder scene or something.
Right.
But we do that as Americans. We create this almost like I don't know what the best word is, but like trauma in a way, like musical trauma, whether it's good or bad. It's like, here is this sonic blast of a pop song, you know, and we're gonna make it, you know, connect with this one scene so you remember it. And I don't see that very often in foreign cinema as I do with American cinema. As I said, aside from Edgar Wright, who is British, you don't see that too often. I see that quite often, though, with American directors. It's less the soundtrack of, like, you know, orchestra taking the beats and everything and putting in actual just songs, almost like a Disney movie. Like, you just put in those songs at the big beats throughout the movie. It does work effectively, though, in many situations, like a James Gunn film. So sorry,
so that's really interesting because, like, thinking on it, I'm like, your big blockbusters, maybe they have some score, but it's kind of pushed aside because you're focusing more on like the actual songs that are playing. And this might be a bit of a harsh word, but it's almost expletive. Like it exploits the audience and the feelings that they already relate with that music. So it makes them be like, I know this song. I can get more into this moment. I relate. It's obviously they're watching potentially a movie for the first time. And so they're like, they don't think of it that way, but it is kind of manipulative in a way.
Wow. I never looked at it like that.
I mean, trailers do that more than anything.
Yeah, I was going to say that. The trailers.
Like, just White Rabbit or various versions of Led Zeppelin songs. They love using those in trailers.
Over and over again, slowing it down the tempo.
Yeah.
Okay.
It reminds me of the Thor Ragnarok trailer that when it first came out, and they used like what is it called?
I don't know what that Led Zeppelin song is called.
It's like very. It has like
Dog?
a Norse name.
Okay.
Is it Love and Thunder? No.
Thunderstruck.
Anyways, it doesn't matter. But they use that song, and it has a name that relates to Thor. And somebody out there is cursing me. But and it just like you think of like the whole like like all that and
yes, okay,
right.
It just
really and whenever I brought this conversation up to my wife, the first thing that she came up with was the song from Kingsman when he's going through the church and just murdering. I believe it was oh god, it's Freebird. I think it's Freebird.
Yeah.
The guitar solo in Freebird. And I mean, fantastic guitar riff, but then you add in just a massive amounts of murdering inside of a church, and all of a sudden, and the way it's filmed as well, very fast paced, very cool, and very fun. You know, you're taking this really like horrific scene of people's brains being blown out, but you really like the song, so it makes it a little bit easier to swallow in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have any kind of Vietnam era movie depicted with some kind of Creedence Clearwater Revival song. That's just a Vietnam movie.
Are you even a Vietnam War movie if you don't have Creedence Clearwater playing in the background?
It's not. I mean, even that King Kong movie used CCR in it, and it's just because it was set during that time period, because that's how you define that time period.
Of course.
Well, it doesn't even have to be Vietnam. Just throw some dudes in a helicopter, and all of a sudden, boom. Oh, war. Huh. Good God, y'all.
War of the Valkyrie. Yeah, there it is.
And that's funny too, because that means it's building on itself, like musical stereotypes within movies. So if you associate Clarence Clearwater Revival with war movies in Vietnam, when you hear it in another movie, it's immediately going to evoke those feelings. So that's really interesting too, that people kind of build and build and build on that. Like the whole like using upbeat songs, really fast paced songs during massacre scenes to make them more palatable. We heard the other day, it's that Frank Sinatra song,
Fly Me to the Moon.
Fly Me to the Moon. And I was like, oh, I remember how this was in Squid Game? And he was like, no. And I'm like, they play it in Squid Game in the first episode when everyone is getting slaughtered at the very, like during the first game. And it's just to make it like, it's still it's
a major contrast.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a heavy contrast between the two, because you're listening to this very upbeat thing, but you're viewing something very violent. So it's such a fascinating thing that movies are able to get away with this type of stuff.
Also the change of pace, like in the James Bond movie with Javier Bardem, like all the James Bond movies, they don't rely too much on like contemporary music. It's always kind of score based or songs specifically written for James Bond. And then when Javier Bardem's come into his like castle or whatever, he has the big helicopter and he has these big rocket launchers and it goes bang, 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 bang. I mean, that's funny because it's the actual song, but you're doing something. And that's the way you go and introduce yourself if you're going to blow somebody up.
Yeah.
Like I can put like if I'm ever going to blow somebody up, I need gigantic speakers that are blasting that song.
Heck yeah, man.
So I do got to ask, and Trevor, you're a massive Jurassic Park fan. What are your thoughts on the reuse of like the main song from Jurassic Park and how they change it with every different? I almost said episode, but with every Jurassic Park, Jurassic World installment. Thank you. Sorry, I'm very tired today.
Just that Jurassic World Dominion trailer, they slow it down and they play like just 6 notes of the score all on piano. They extrapolate all the other different, and it gives me goosebumps just because I love that song. And that song, as just from the movie and all the scenes that I love. Like, I know this new movie is going to suck, but I still enjoyed the trailer because they're using the song and they build up the climax within the trailer by using the notes of the song, because they're going full on with the nostalgia of like, oh, look, here's the original cast. So here's the original song. You guys, you know this, right?
and that builds back on the whole idea. So John Williams writing these scores, and I thought of the Force Awakens trailer when it came out and they played Luke's theme or the Force song, whatever they call it these days. And that song, like literally, if I sit and listen to it, I could cry listening to that song, because it just like it's such a powerful song. And so it's so fun to think about how these composers write these songs, and then like years and decades ago at this point, and they can just pull even little bits, like the 6 notes, like playing just the 6 notes of the Jurassic Park theme, and everyone's like, I know that song. Like that's insane.
The thing, like just writing the Star Wars theme in 1977, or having it released in 77, and then using it for The Force Awakens in 2017, and it's the same song, it's the same beat, and it's just as strong of that connection.
Sorry.
You just start associating those songs, like the Force song is so hopeful, because like the first time you hear it is Luke standing on Tatooine staring at the double suns, and as they said, and you just like, it's so like uplifting and hopeful, and like for them to use that when the Star Wars series came back and the sequels, and it's just like I don't have words for it. I'm just like goosebumps.
Yeah, it's almost like they told you, hey, come back to your childhood, go watch this again, it's going to be great, bring your kids along with it this time.
Nostalgia is a powerful thing.
It's a hell of a drug. Now,
I find it to be a very fantastic movie. I watch it every year. It's called The Holiday, and it's got Cameron Diaz and Jack Black and Jude Law.
I know of it.
Yeah, fantastic. So Jack Black plays a composer for movies. And the old man, he needed a song, or he didn't need a song, but Jack Black was like, you know what? I'm going to create a song for this guy. So whenever he walks up on stage to accept his award for being Lifetime Award or whatever. And it's very interesting. I really like the scenes where he's coming up with the idea for the song, and then he plays the song, and it's like you can see that character, that person, through the music that he put down on the piano. And it's fascinating that like these composers that we're talking about really capture the hopefulness, like you said, Michelle, or the like the stomp, like the march, the you know what I mean? Like like it's weird how they can convey all this stuff with just a few notes. And all of a sudden, and like you said, decades later, we still get goosebumps when we hear these little things.
Right. And remember, they're not just making music to make a song. Like they're thinking about what you would see visually, and putting that into songs. Like the Imperial March. He wrote that, like if you were to watch somebody march, what would it sound like? Dun, dun, dun. Like they're marching, right? Like you're trying to evoke that same thing visually, but with sound. So you kind of have to figure out, like, okay, what is something going to look like if, they're marching across the field, or if they're looking up longingly at two suns, like what does that sound like is what they're doing. And I think, someone like John Williams just nails it every time. He really knows what he's doing.
And that's the thing is, like, think about, if you think about Star Wars, like Star Wars, if you take the music, take John Williams' score out of Star Wars and put a different composer in there. Imagine what a different movie that would have been. You've got this
much different
big robot that's all gold with a little trash can that follows them, and then you've got this whiny kid who just wants to be a pilot. Ugh. And it's like,
but I was gonna go to Tashi Station.
But that's the thing, is like you've got that score that now you feel that hopefulness with Luke. You feel all these things, and I love the feel of emotion that you get with music. It's so fascinating.
It's interesting you say, what would the movie be like elsewise? Because that's kind of like the Marvel movies. it took them a long time to actually have a memorable score. You can't think of anything from the first Iron Man's, Captain America's, Thor's. There's nothing until they come up with the score for Infinity War and Endgame. That is a good score. They finally figured it out. But they made a lot of movies that don't really have any kind of evocative soundtracks to them.
No, you're right. I can't think of one that stood out.
Does the Avengers
Captain America
show
First
up
Avenger
in the first
It
Avengers
doesn't show
movie?
up until Infinity War.
Really?
It's not even
the
Ultron.
Na, 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 na.
Yeah.
Really? That doesn't show up until Endgame? Are you sure?
No, Infinity War.
Whatever.
No, because there was a whole video on YouTube where the guy was talking. He was like, there's 5 ways that Marvel makes music. And it's like, they just sample from other composers. They just do like, they find open source ones, and it's like, they just cut costs on music. And that video didn't come out until like 2017 or 2018. And then all of a sudden they have this awesome score for Infinity War. So I don't know if that video trended, like 10 million people watched that really quick.
Marvel's like,
we need a good, go find the best composer we can.
Well,
where's John Williams? Is he busy?
That's the funny thing. So I still have Alan Silvestri pulled up right here, and he actually did the Captain American first Avenger. He did the Avengers, and he actually got nominated for it's got a list of awards here that he got nominated for all of these Marvel films. But it's pretty. They won awards
I mean,
for Captain America, but I can't. Right, but
That's
I can't think of one song from Captain America or from the Avengers or from besides the one that like the big one.
No, the funny thing about that video is they asked people, can you tell me any notes from anything you've seen Marvel? And they just stared at the guy for a while, and then they're like,
Come and get your love.
No, there's the Spider-Man song. That's the one they knew. Spider-Man, Spider-Man. That's the only Marvel song they could think of everything that's ever been made on Marvel on cinema.
It's a good song.
Oh, wow.
It's a good song, you know? Yeah, it's catchy. Of course. No. Yeah, you're right. It's all going to be just like the Guardians soundtrack. Those are just songs that we already knew from beforehand.
Yeah.
So.
And that was such a change of pace for all the other Marvel
That's
stuff.
so
anyway.
true.
Yeah.
Well, they used that. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to talk about awards and just the Oscars and like
they give awards
please, go ahead. Like they don't even know what they're doing at this point. But with the Oscars, they do show those montages. Like everyone knows there's the in memoriam montage where people always complain that they didn't include so-and-so because some people have millions of hours on their time and they're just watching it and they have a whole list of names that they're crossing off that they actually mentioned. But that's not this podcast and those annoying people. But there's also the montage. They always have montages before the sound presentation. And it will just be various clips from various songs or from various movies all smashed together. And you can think of all of them. But then they do the same thing for like Best Actor. And they have previous actor nominees with their greatest quotes they've ever done. And then they have the same thing going in cinematography. And there's like shots from Prince of, Arabia and all that cool, or Lawrence of Arabia and all these great cinematography things. And it comes back to the same thing. You're going to cut the part that has the strongest connection to movie watchers. Like here's a slew of clips of movies I've seen. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. Yeah. And then you see, oh yeah, look, there's Jack Nicholson saying you can't handle the truth. Oh, cool. But then there's actual soundtracks, and you can get lost in it.
Well, yeah. I think the unfortunate thing is that scores are underrated. People underestimate the power of them. Maybe they don't even think about it.
I think they don't think about it.
They're like, I know this song, but they don't realize how powerful that song is or how much it sticks with them. Because not every score is going to be Star Wars. It's going to be Indiana Jones.
But not every score. People don't listen necessarily to soundtracks. Like,
that's true.
You can just go find soundtracks on Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or wherever you listen to music. And that's not going to be in people. Like, I have a soundtracks playlist because I'm that kind of movie nerd.
Same with me. I was the kid that grew up and didn't
don't.
buy like popular artists. I bought soundtracks as like a 12-year-old. Like that was me.
Nope, I was listening to Sum 41.
Nope, not my thing.
No, I love to find my favorite pieces of music from a movie, and I don't find them in every movie, but like Lord of the Rings, like I'll have like certain songs where they come on and I'm like, I love this song, and I have it so I can listen to it because it just
here
a good feeling.
Here's something there. Do you think that this is gonna start getting lost with the newer generations? Like, do you think that more movies are just gonna try and stick with more of a pop type of thing? And
no, I don't think so.
I think the more worry is, say it doesn't connect with fans, but maybe it doesn't incentivize as many people to go and become composers of musical scores. That's the scary part. It's not what you're necessarily a fan of, but if it's not even, televised and they kind of throw it, it's like, this is a very specialty niche skill, and not as many people may go into it or perform it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be lost in this generation, because you have Hans Zimmer that like headlined, what was it, Bonnaroo or whatever it was a couple years ago. Like, he was the biggest draw. He was the headliner on the main stage. Hans Zimmer, wasn't like some rapper or pop artist or anything like that. So I don't think so. And I think with the new movie, The Batman, coming out, like, people are really excited for it, not just for the director and the actors, but also because Michael I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Giacchino, is doing the score for that, about Italian names. And people are just excited for it because it's really well done. It's been getting millions of views online. So I don't think that soundtracks are necessarily, being lost like the traditional soundtrack that you're thinking of.
He's the Pixar composer.
Yeah, he's great. I just can't pronounce his last name.
Why do I know
don't
that
ask me
name?
to. So
he did the song from
popular.
Up.
Yeah, he did the song from Up.
Up song is pretty iconic. They play that.
He's one of the best. He's one of the best in the business.
That song plays on loop with their other like main street songs.
He also did the War for the Planet of the Apes. I mean, his music is fantastic. So I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a dead art. That's why I think it's silly for the Academy to negate that from their broadcast.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but the Academy, the Oscars, all that stuff, award shows it's not, people don't care anymore.
Those are definitely losing
traction
because, like, again, they're all a money thing. This isn't necessarily about all the money that goes into it. And if you were hosting an award show, wouldn't you want We Don't Talk About Bruno to be performed by the voice actors live on stage? Like, oh, but Disney didn't put it up for nomination. Well, should the studio put it up, or should people watch the films and be like, hey, I want to nominate this. I'm part of the Academy that judges these things. Maybe I should nominate stuff myself. Not speaking from my job's personal perspective, but companies give money to have their things put featured, but there's still another team that features and goes through everything. Just that's their job.
That's the problem a lot of people have with things like the Academy and the Grammys, is the people that decide that these things are going to be nominated and what things win, they're not relevant. They don't have a pulse on pop culture or what's popular or anything, which is why younger people especially don't care. They're not going to watch it. They're like, why do I care what these people think? I'm going to watch what I want to watch. I'm going to enjoy what I'm going to enjoy. Like, those awards don't matter to me anymore, because the people deciding who gets those awards are irrelevant.
Well, and for the most part, you can pay for your win.
Yeah, I mean, and people have.
a lot of times they just pay for their win anyways. So it could be a movie that nobody cared about, but for some reason it loads up all the awards. What was that movie, Crash? Didn't that movie Crash win like a ton of awards? But nobody would ever rewatch that movie because it was like,
no, it was awful.
Why would anybody want to?
I hated it the first time. Why would I want to watch it again?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Sorry, Prague, you were going to say something.
I lost my track. I think it has something to do with the fact that, the Oscars, they should know, like, they're trying for ratings, and I don't think they need to. Like, that's not, like, don't try for ratings because you're not going to get them. People don't care about these films. Like, go, like, make it smaller, but keep everything. Like, keep all the awards, air them all, and don't worry about the like how many viewers you're going to get, Just make a decent broadcast. Keep it short.
You're not sports, so they need to come to terms with that. Award shows died like probably the turn of the century,
if not before then. Like, make it a 2-hour event, air everything, and you're done with it. And then you can have like real, instead of people spending all this money to make their picture win, you can actually have something of quality win, and then it'll matter more to like those people, to people in the industry, rather than Joe Schmo on his couch who would rather watch, some remake of whatever film that came out this year that had pop songs in it.
It's funny too, because awards shows are really like, I feel like in culture, especially nerd culture, you're like, well, this film is better because it won this many awards. It won awards for this and it won awards for this. But like normal people don't care. They just don't care.
Right. Did you see the cinematography? I mean, seriously, it won best cinematography. This movie is far superior. Yeah, I watched this stupid movie on Netflix with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds, and it was crap.
Yeah,
but
it was hilarious. They're like, "What's cinematography? I don't know what you're talking about."
What is this?
Throwing Academy Awards at people in a discussion or an argument is like the most pretentious thing you can do.
No one's gonna care. Oh, Academy Award winning. Who and what was in this? What?
I like that we've had
sound mixing.
We've had so many podcasts where we're like, "Oh man, the cinematography in that scene was so good," and here we are going, "Man, F them for saying cinematography, man. How pretentious."
I didn't know pretentious. I don't care.
I didn't say we're not pretentious, Alex.
Oh, that's funny.
On the point you made earlier, Alex, about like scores kind of becoming non-existent and getting replaced with pop songs, I've noticed a trend in movies where if you watch anything that's like high fantasy or sci-fi or things that are supposed to be otherworldly or magical, they need scores because they can't rely on popular music. So as long as those stories are being created and being told, they're always going to need scores because they help convey these really rich worlds to an audience in a very short amount of time.
I totally agree with that. I think one thing that worries me is like we can go out and either download or buy a CD. Like if I wanted to get the score Back to the Future, it's super easy to come by. But I mean, our score is going to be readily available for people who actually care. And how many people are actually going to care in the future? Now, and this could come from the Oscars taking away this award and broadcasting it so people see how important music is. Because I don't think a lot of people actually think about the music until I don't know, until 30 years later, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's the Jurassic Park song."
Well, it's just you're also spot on with we're on that edge of these old directors who are coming out and saying that Marvel movies are not cinema. It's not true cinema, because they're the popular thing. Since they're the popular thing that drives money, they have the target of what's defining everything else that's being made. Studios are going to put money to chase on what's popular. And so if Marvel movies aren't focusing on soundtracks themselves, it also goes into the whole idea of people like if what's popular doesn't care about soundtrack. The new stupid movie on Netflix doesn't really care about soundtrack. The Marvel movies don't care about soundtrack. If the most popular things are losing soundtrack, does then soundtrack fall by the wayside?
We're all like thoughtful.
I'm good at asking questions. I'm not good at answering questions.
Well, sometimes you just have to ponder a question, even if you don't have the answer to it.
I definitely don't have the answers.
I mean, only time, like, what comforts me is knowing, like, classical music composers, they've existed for a very long time. Like, as long as there's been music, there's been people composing music. And, like, I think when we're talking about John Williams and how talented he is, and it's like, well, he's one of the greatest composers. You look at people like Mozart, like Bach, like Beethoven, like, those are songs, people still listen to that music now. They still listen to it. Like, how long ago were those songs written?
It's also interesting just in the idea that if you're a classical music composer, do you know many who are just doing and creating brand new just tracks? Have movies now become the new way for composers to kind of compose? Because a lot of like Beethoven and Mozart stuff, it's connected to plays and performances. A lot of people don't know or care, but a lot of like classical music is based on plays. Now it's just we have the visual movie component to it
instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what's happening.
I feel like they're trying to keep Well, first off, I think you can still become a classical musician and write your own music. Like there are orchestras all over the world where they
Mozart
perform.
in the Jungle. Watch it; it's fun.
They perform in places, and what I was thinking of is like the Hollywood Bowl, where you can go and watch a movie, and they will orchestrate the score live in front of you. And that's kind of how they keep this kind of music relevant and like people will keep coming back for it. And also, if you've never done that, it's phenomenal. It is amazing.
I bet. A few years back during San Diego Comic-Con, they had an orchestra do Back to the Future, and I missed it, and I hate that I missed it because I feel like that would have been just incredible to see. I'm still beating myself up about missing that, but you know what? It'll most likely come back. It'll come back. I know it will.
Were you out of time?
I would love for them to do that with Star Wars. That would be so cool.
They did a John Williams tribute at the Hollywood Bowl.
I would totally go to something like that. Yeah. See, and it's just
I would go to that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the thing is like, as we get older, like Alex, you have a daughter, you're going to share these movies and these songs with her, and they're going to become a part of her childhood and her identity growing up. So as long as people are,
of course,
bringing it, like you're passing on what's nostalgic to you, to your children, it will become nostalgic for them. And that will keep these things important. It's the same thing that's kept things like Beethoven and Shakespeare relevant hundreds of years later.
Yeah, I can see that, but I can also see like some of the other movies that come out too that are geared for her, and it's like Trolls take over the world, and it's Justin Timberlake music and stuff like that, and she's gonna be like, I don't want to watch your stupid time travel movie, Dad, where they go back to the 50s. I don't even know what the 1900s are. Why do I care about this? Because you know what I mean?
As a kid, you didn't watch any horrible, like really cheesy movies at all?
I mean, I did.
Well, no, of course I did, but it wasn't because my parents made me.
I know, but
my parents weren't trying to push their nostalgia on me.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I would feel like I'm
pushing.
doing.
I feel it is sharing.
It's like sharing, this is on TV. You can watch it or not.
Oh no!
Or like growing up.
You don't watch these classics with commercials, no sir.
Like growing up, like my dad really liked Godzilla and he really liked James Bond, and so I would watch Godzilla and James Bond with him. I mean, I was like a 7-year-old girl. It wasn't really in my wheelhouse, but it was something that we did together, and so I loved it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay, yeah, I get that.
So, but I also watched like these movies that like those things because I shared them with him became a part of like who I am and my memories of that time in my life. I'm sure I watched horrible movies that if I saw like the image, I'd be like, I remember that. I watched that when I was younger, but that's all it was. So, some things just don't stick in you. Like Trolls, probably not something you carry with you the rest of your life. Maybe probably it is not. For some people. I don't know. I'm not here to judge.
Right? Well, yeah, no judging on that.
I also, I imagine, I think back to like our childhood. Mm-hmm. We grew up with movies like Beauty and the Beast, which was major, like winner of awards all left and right. Then you've got Aladdin, Lion King. We grew up with those type of movies. Kids nowadays are growing up with Trolls and crazy.
We had plenty of those movies back then. We had terrible.
I was like,
did we?
Probably more.
I don't know. Maybe I just didn't watch it.
Moana.
Well, I watched garbage.
That's true. Okay. Never mind.
Come on.
Never mind.
It's
this part out.
Disney's not the comp to make right now. If you want to make this comp in like the mid 2000s, Disney, that works.
Mm-hmm. But Disney has come back on itself and it's refound what makes it magical, at least when it comes to animated cinema.
No,
but this isn't a Disney podcast. No,
it could be.
Are you sure? The amount of times we bring up Disney in all of our episodes,
way too much.
He's wearing a Mickey Mouse shirt.
Well, I do. That's for the end. But
I know.
Anyway, I know you guys didn't watch the Olympics, but figure skating is a big part of the Olympics, and every figure skating routine is with some kind of classical music. And the ones that are just like, traditional, like, oh, this is, the Nutcracker Suite or something that I can take it or leave it. But then there's some where they skate to movie soundtracks. And as soon as they did the Gladiator song, I'm like, it's the Gladiator song. Like Gladiator is not, It won all the kinds of awards. It's not my favorite film, but I've seen it. And that soundtrack is absolutely amazing. That one can give me chills. And just watching the figure skater perform to it, I was more interested in the routine than somebody who's just doing some lifeless, ballad from 1700s.
The Nutcracker, right? Like the Nutcracker.
I love the Nutcracker Suite. That's all I could think of. There was a lot of Russian composer based.
There was a lot of Russian composer based skating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's that music that draws you in.
Yeah.
It makes you.
But if the music draws me in, I'm going to be more attentive and just already, even though they're not, doing the Gladiator. I would watch Gladiator on Ice, but.
Gladiator on Ice, blood everywhere. That'd be fantastic.
It's such a nice stark contrast of the red on the ice.
They'd use like ribbons.
That'd be rad.
They get hockey players out there to act everything.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, they're knocking teeth out.
Any movie on Ice.
We've also focused a lot on movies. There's also TV shows, and TV shows maybe not go full in on the scores, but they often have an iconic intro theme. And the one that instantly comes to mind for me is Game of Thrones, where I don't remember any particular song or music from Game of Thrones or any particular scenes, but I do know the intro with all the clogs unfolding, Winterfell and everything, and then that soundtrack is super iconic.
And no matter how much you hate the show now, you'll
that
always
song
love
is
that
still
song.
outstanding.
Well, I don't hate the show. I just hated the last 2 seasons.
I don't.
I agree about the soundtrack. The soundtrack is banger. That was a great one. There's plenty of TV shows that have great soundtracks and great opening scenes and such. So good point. There.
Absolutely.
Shout out because it's a bingo square, but shout out to Dark for having a phenomenal soundtrack.
We're about to start watching that, so good to know.
Oh my god, so good. No, because it really does tie into the whole theme of like time and everything, and it's really dark and it really, really good. It's really well edited. It's like the heartbeat stuff really going dark. On.
Well, in a lighter tone, you could also think of something like The Simpsons. Like The Simpsons has an iconic opening song. You mentioned Stranger Things.
Stranger Things is not particularly good or memorable, but the opening song of Stranger Things nails the idea of being 80s and creepy.
It's a banger, man. It's very John Carpenter. I love it. I dial that up.
It's actually, right once you brought up TV shows, my brain just went nuts thinking of songs. And Knight Rider. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen an episode of that.
Yeah. Oh, Twilight Zone. Also good.
Think of the Power Rangers song. Power Rangers is dumb. It's one of the worst things ever made. But that song is catchy.
No. You can literally type it in on your phone. People have it as their text tone.
But I think a lot of those people think that it's Kim Possible.
They sound very similar.
I don't know what that is, but okay.
Just to be able to come up with a 30-second thing. John Williams has a 2-hour movie and to make 6-7 minute tracks at once. You got 30 seconds. We got an intro song. We're going to show various clips.
Describe the whole show.
Let's go.
Yes.
A perfect example. Cheers. You know what you're getting into when you hear that song.
Yep, a bunch of drunken friends hanging out together.
WandaVision did a really good job.
Just love it.
Too, of being iconic for each time period. It showed what the iconic music was for each decade for TV shows, and they had to come up with a whole thing for each episode.
That was one of the funnest parts of that.
See?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yep.
Now, do you guys I know that we've all kind of jumped around and said kind of what our favorites, composers, and is there one just absolute favorite song that you'll always listen to and you'll always get excited about every time you hear it, or soundtrack or whatever from any movie?
I have one. I'm gonna wait on mine until someone else goes.
Okay. I was like, well, I already said mine because I would love to pick a Lord of the Rings soundtrack, but I'm a little picky choosy about which songs I like, and some songs I'm like, but some songs I'm like, ah. So, but I said mine already, and it's definitely the fourth song. is and always will be the fourth song. Like I built a lightsaber on my birthday. When you lift them up at the end, they play that song, and I started crying.
Wow.
And it just gets to me every time. So that's mine.
I think we all know what Trevor's is. But...
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Prague. You, Alex?
Well, I mean, I feel like I've got a bunch. I mean, I could easily just go with Back to the Future and just go with that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go with Pride and Prejudice soundtrack. There is something.
Which one?
The one with is it Keira Knightley? It wasn't Keira Knightley in that one.
The 2005 version. Sorry, Pride and Prejudice is my favorite movie. So
it's one of my top favorite movies too. And a lot of it has to do with the music. I absolutely love that music in that movie. Yeah.
It's the gentle piano.
Oh, the gentle piano. Dude, I feel like on a rainy day, I can sit out on my back porch with like a fire in our fire pit and just chill with that music.
Oh, stop. You're making me want to watch it.
Seriously, sometimes I get that feel. If it's cold and rainy, I'm like, put on Pride and Prejudice. This is what we're doing.
Nice.
It's just so good. It's so good.
I was not expecting
Okay,
that.
so tell us about Mac and Me.
So.
I'm going to make you watch it one day.
Next time it rains, we'll watch it.
Stop.
Well,
no. So mine's not going to be Mac and Me, and it was not even, I was even going to choose Fly the Navigator, because I do like that soundtrack a lot. But I'm going to go with one that I don't think that you guys were going to think about, and that was Driving Miss Daisy. It is one of my favorites growing up. Bought the soundtrack. I think it's fantastic. It's whimsical. It's one that just pops into my head all the time. So I'm going to throw that out there as like a little curveball. I didn't want to be too on the nose.
I was about to say
or something, but let's look up that Miss Daisy.
Curveballs.
And I do also want to give a shout out to quite possibly the best piece of music ever written, which is the first time music was ever attached to an animated film, the 1928 classic Steamboat Willie. Because can you tell me if those whistling notes, it's at the start of every Disney movie now, something more iconic than just those like three whistling notes?
Sure, I have no idea what the three notes are.
I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know what it sounds like, and it sounds like a... Oh, wow.
Never heard of it.
All the time.
Oh, you definitely heard it. Come on, man.
I'm telling you, I've not heard it. I'm sorry.
Well, Prague doesn't watch animated movies, so it makes sense.
That's true. So, could be that. But that's a good one. It's cute. I liked it. It's a cute whistle.
And on Jurassic
Park, Oscars, change your ways. Bring music
or
back.
Don't. Just stop broadcasting anything, and then you just save everybody.
Stop getting out awards.
You can give out your award. Just post a tweet. Best picture, tweet. Best actor, tweet. Done.
No, hold on. No,
that's how you know how trendy you are.
Yeah. That's how old we are. We're like, yeah, tweet it out. When really it should be, no, you're gonna have to give the award as the TikTok dance. Best picture.
Exactly.
Dude, that's the world we live in. Is everything. If you're not doing a TikTok dance, you're not doing anything at all.
Well, next year there'll be anything at all. Televised on TikTok next year. So
yeah.
I know you guys already did the shout out for television, and Trevor said you guys don't want to talk about video games, but I do want to give a small shout out to video games and the amazing scores that they also have.
Like Zelda.
Oh my god, dude!
Into it, but
there's one game that I have to mention that I bought it because the soundtrack alone, Castlevania on the original NES, the soundtrack to that is so good. I literally would just put it on and just let the music play. Same with Zelda 2. Or the original Zelda, the original NES, yeah. Not Zelda 2, but yeah.
I mean, all Zeldas have that same that whole
Except for Ocarina of Time, it does not have the main theme for some reason. Yes. Man. I love Zelda.
That video game, I didn't even think about bringing up video games.
It's just a whole other topic.
Yeah, it would really be.
You don't
that's
just
like
throw it in. Oh, by
really,
the way,
at the end, we're gonna tease a future podcast where we talk about music and video games and how impactful it is.
Even the sound alerts you get in video games, my goodness.
Yeah. Just
Anyways.
healing, dying, anything, finding treasure. Na 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 na.
Whoa!
Anyways, we should wrap that up
for the future. I just want to tease it.
Awesome. So to everyone listening, you've made it this far. Alex forgot to mention our socials, so I'm introducing that chance for him now.
Oh, that's my turn. So check us out over on crossthestreamsmedia.com. You're gonna find all of our episodes there. You're gonna find links to all of our social medias. If you don't want to go through there, you can find us on all of our social medias at Secondary Heroes. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's the whole spiel. Check us out over on YouTube. That way you can see us when we're chatting. And sometimes we like to add movie clips and whatnot. And with our trailer reviews or trailer reactions, we actually play the trailer as well, so you can watch it with us. Not live or anything like that. Pretend it's live. Who cares? It's always fun. But yeah, check us out at Secondary Heroes or at crossthestreamsmedia.com. And one more thing on crossthestreamsmedia.com, send us a voicemail. If you have a soundtrack that you want to tell us about that really meant the world to you, send us a voicemail. We'll play it on the next episode, or we'll play it on one of our social media channels, and you'll be featured. Oh, yeah. And by the way, all of this is free for you, and it's priceless to us.
There you go.
Awesome. So if you made it this far, guess what? The Secondary Heroes are about to celebrate our 3-year anniversary.
Woo!
So only super fans probably heard me say that. What's it going to entail? I don't know. What are we going to talk about next week? I don't know. But until then, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Always a pleasure, everyone.
Adios, y'all.